What's going on, everyone, and welcome to this video. I'm excited to start producing some more fantasy football content. Hopefully this is something that you want to see in the future. Let me know. Leave a like, comment, subscribe down below, and kind of keep me updated on what you want to see. What I plan on doing right now is on the Sleeper app, which is what I'm going to be doing these mock drafts on by myself, so a bunch of computers. We'll see how that plays out with ADP and stuff, but I'm planning on doing kind of a mini series here with going from the first pick all the way down to the 10th pick in, a series of videos within the next week or two. So obviously we're going to start at the first pick now, second, third, fourth, fifth in later videos, and really start to get a development on what teams you should be having earlier in the draft and later in the draft, and especially at these turn picks at 1 and 10. I'm doing a 10-team PPR league as well, mock draft. That seems some of the most popular is 10-team, 12-team PPR. So I'm going to mainly do these on 10-team PPR. Let me know what else you'd like to see potentially, and maybe get some videos out in the future. But this is what we're going to start with for now. Of course, if you like the video, make sure to leave a like, and like I said, comment and subscribe down below. That helps me out a ton, lets me know what you want to see, and also lets me know how you guys gauge the content and how you feel about certain players going where. And speaking of which, let's go ahead and just start this draft. And obviously, easy number one pick, Christian McCaffrey. We don't have to think too much about that. It's just a consensus number one in most leagues. From there on, it's pretty close for what people want to do with the second pick. I've seen Kamara, I've seen Cook go second. To see Jonathan Taylor go before Derrick Henry is quite surprising. Barkley's another one of those picks that is kind of up in the air, obviously, in the first round after his recent injury. Been lingering a little bit, so it is still kind of a scary first-round pick. But if I was still in the choice, we'll pause it here on my pick. If I still had the choice for Barkley at the end of this first round, I think it's a steal still. Even though that timetable of missing the first couple of weeks is kind of scary because, they have that could play week 1, could play potentially to week 3. So you already have a couple of weeks potentially missing for your first round pick. Not exactly what you're looking forward to, but we all know the potential talent that Saquon Barkley has. Just unfortunately, they got injured last year. And obviously the Giants are trying to help that offense a little bit, but it's still going to be quite rough there in New York. So Barkley's still maybe an end of the round, first round pick for me. If I was looking at the turn and, looking at all these running backs go before him, I think he's a great turn pick. I think it's still a decent enough running back one to probably finish in the top 10 if he stays healthy this year. Of course, could be a top 2 at that. So after Barkley goes Zeke, Chubb, Aaron Jones, Tyreek Hill, the first receiver off the board. At the turn pick, Kelsey is the first tight end. Eckler, who I've been trying to target in most of my drafts, he has so much upside there in Los Angeles. You can't go wrong whatsoever with getting him. Same with Devontae Adams. With how much Devontae Adams is slipping in drafts, it's shocking to me that I've seen Stephon Diggs go before Devontae Adams, which is wild because, Aaron Rodgers and Devontae Adams are both confirmed to be going back to Green Bay this year, at least for this year, confirmed. So, you saw what they did last year. That can easily happen again. They didn't really help that offense at all. Like receiver wise, they just keep drafting quarterbacks and whatever it might be, to help the Green Bay Packers. They don't want to help right now. They want to help the future. So Devontae Adams still crazy good. After Devontae Adams, Patrick Mahomes, the first quarterback. Hopkins, Diggs, Joe Mixon, who I still am iffy on, AJ Brown, and DK Metcalf to finish on the second round. And then over to my pick. We'll resume this. So this is where Najee Harris has been rising on everybody's draft boards quite a lot. Even in the Hall of Fame game, got some good touches. Didn't have the greatest scoreline at the end of the game, but still had some decent pacing throughout. So Najee Harris is still one of those players that might still even rise, and I would hate to see him not, in the third round-ish. I think that's where he could live up to his potential, but he's going to get the ball a lot. It is a passing offense first, but he's a fantastic receiver, so I think that Najee Harris is still a great pick here. Obviously, we have Christian McCaffrey, though, so we have to look at everything and see what develops in our way at this turn pick here. We have 2 picks. I'm not really feeling quarterback just yet. We have a while. Pick someone up later. Mahomes is, if you're going to go reach for a quarterback early, Mahomes is probably the number one. But looking at the running back room, there's still some really good running backs in the future here that could go at the end of the third round and on the way back. Najee Harris is easily there. The wide receivers in question right now at this turn pick are insane, though. Justin Jefferson, Calvin Ridley, Keenan Allen, all 3 of those I would be highly targeting in my drafts. And I also started to think about getting a tight end on the first round, on the first swing of things, because when you have one of these top 3 players, you can see the drop off just projected wise points that, a 60-point drop off in total is kind of crazy. But for this one, we'll go tight end later and see how that pays out for us. I think I am going to go Najee here just for the value, and I'm going to go Calvin Ridley over Justin Jefferson. Justin Jefferson is obviously fantastic, but I just don't really like Kirk Cousins too much. And he got a little shoulder injury in practice. They're saying it's not going to be anything too crazy, but you always have to be wary about that. Calvin Ridley's just talent-wise one of the best receivers, could be one of the best receivers in the league, and is on a very much-needed offense that's going to have to score a lot of points considering how bad their defense always is. George Kittle, Darren Waller both go at the end of this round, so no tight end for us, at least one of the top tight ends. Antonio Gibson, J.K. Dobbins, Swift, Miles Sanders, Keenan Allen, Darren Waller, like I said, McLaurin, and Clyde Edwards-Helaire on the turn, which also in the 4th round to get Clyde Edwards-Helaire is quite a steal as well, because nothing changed in Kansas City. He's going to get the ball more, actually, now that Le'Veon Bell's gone, and they didn't really add anyone to that roster to vamp up the targets or take the targets away from him or take the carries. So I think Clyde Edwards-Helaire, I think I got him in the 1st round last year. It wasn't terrible. I traded him away for Devontae Adams, but that being said, he still has a ton of upside. Getting him anywhere in the 3rd or 4th round is just a steal, so that's someone I'd be targeting as well. Mike Evans is one of those receivers where Chris Godwin, Mike Evans are kind of coin flips, and I actually like targeting Antonio Brown in later drafts as that 3rd receiver. So I don't really like going for either Mike Evans or Chris Godwin because they're so coin flip. Every week they could drop 180 yards and 3 touchdowns, or they could drop a goose egg, and that's what scares me the most about that offense in general, about having such good players in 3 wide receiver roles. But Robinson, Jacobs, and Michael Thomas in the 4th round, Montgomery, Julio Jones, who's going way too late for me as well. I think he should be easily in the top 3 rounds. It's Julio Jones. Like, he went to a better team. Obviously, they're a run-focused, team there in Tennessee, but it's Julio Jones. AJ Brown, of course, is going to take some targets away, but he's still the 2nd option there no matter what, and he's fantastic. Josh Allen and Darrell Henderson to leave out the mix here. So back in the 4th round, we got 20 seconds, so let's go ahead and take a pause here. Back in the 4th round turn is where I think I'm going to be starting to target Kyler Murray or Lamar Jackson, because there's just so much value there in drafts to get at the turn pick especially. Let's take a look. We already have 2 great running backs, Najee Harris and McCaffrey. Both are absolute workhorses. Barring they don't get injured, those are the 2 I'm playing the rest of the year realistically, right? So, like, Chris Carson's good here for the value, but it's not a pick I need to use. And then looking at the wide receivers, there's so much wide receiver depth, even going down in the 60s. Like Deontay Johnson down here is fantastic. Even T. Higgins, Chase Claypool, Jared Jeudy I like a little bit. Robbie Anderson with Sam Darnold once again now in Carolina, so they have a little bit of chemistry. But this is realistically where I'm going to be looking at someone like Kyler, someone like Lamar Jackson overall. I'm actually going to take Lamar here once we resume this, because I think Lamar is being heavily undervalued for no reason. He actually got better receivers this year. Still, Lamar Jackson still is going to run for 1,000 yards and potentially can only really get better from what happened last year. So I think Lamar Jackson is a great pick, especially off the 3rd quarterback off the draft board, kind of going into that 5th round. I don't mind using that pick on an early quarterback when like I said, this is kind of the spot where you can go early tight end, early quarterback in this one position, in my opinion. I think, having that kind of mix up, because one or the other, there's going to be so many good players later on in the draft, especially at turn picks, that using one of these early picks to get one of those locked in quarterbacks or tight ends, I'd probably say tight end over anything. But Lamar Jackson's just going to be way too good this year, and I think for where he's going, it's an absolute steal. You could also look at someone like Kyle Pitts here, or Mark Andrews even. Both have a very high ceiling and can both be insanely good players in what they're doing. But as of what I'm looking at right now, just looking on the board here, it's like Chris Carson is our number 1 as far as what this is telling me. Mark Cooper, of course, in Dallas, if he's healthy, will be great pick. But I'm also targeting CeeDee Lamb, so there's no reason to really get Cooper here. I don't think CeeDee Lamb's going to make it back to us, but to look at what we have on the board to see where we're at, kind of getting the value. I don't know how I feel about Kyle Pitts. I think he's a fantastic player, and he's the 2nd option in Atlanta. So realistically, he's going to get a lot of targets and a lot of receptions from Matt Ryan and could be amazing value. Same with Mark Andrews. We could actually even go with the stack if we really wanted to. And for where we're at, I think there's going to be enough good wide receivers that I'm actually going to take Mark Andrews here. As that kind of stack in Baltimore, Lamar Jackson, Mark Andrews, both of them could pop off any given week, and I think if you're going to take a stack, that is a good enough stack to go with. So that's what I'm going to go with in this one. Christian McCaffrey, Najee Harris are running backs. Calvin Ridley are receiver 1. Lamar Jackson and Mark Andrews, pretty solid so far, I say. Chris Carson, CeeDee Lamb, Jamar Chase, Godwin, Kyler going off the board, Kyle Pitts as well later on. So Mark Andrews would have been gone probably by the end of this round if we didn't take him here. Same with Kyle Pitts. Cup, Cooper, DJ Moore, who I was also thinking about at that turn pick. DJ Moore is fantastic. It realistically can only get better. With Sam Darnold instead of the awful quarterback history he's had throughout his career in Carolina so far. Russell Wilson, Travis Etienne, Thielen, Juju. I still don't know how to feel about Juju, considering I'm still targeting Chase Claypool or Deontay Johnson instead. And speaking of which, Deontay Johnson is still here without a doubt. That is my pick. I just, no questions asked, Deontay Johnson here in the 6th round. For me, Juju going before him is, it's crazy, so it's easy for me to get him. Also, with Kenny Golladay having his hamstring injury reoccurring in practice, I'm out on Kenny Golladay. Had him last year. He was a pain in my ass, to say the least, and it was just rough to have him on your team, so I'm going to stay away from him. To finish this round, though, James Robinson, Gaskin, Kareem Hunt, Kenny Golladay, and then Deontay Johnson we picked up. So we're at 2 each for each position. We have a quarterback and tight end, so we're completely good on that for the rest of the draft. This is where we could potentially look at another running back as far as depth goes. Same with wide receiver. Like I said, there's just so many good receivers in this draft still. I am a Denver Broncos fan, so I just like the talent of Jerry Jeudy, but I don't like the quarterback play that's involved. But you still have someone like Deebo Samuel, Brandon Cooks, if Deshaun Watson starts there in Houston, who's going to be a fantastic late-round flyer. Even Laviska Shenault with Trevor Lawrence is an incredible late-round flyer, so I don't think we have to go another wide receiver here. I think this is somewhere we go running back. And to see what we have, you have Javonte Williams, who's going to be in a timeshare in Denver, with Melvin Gordon, and realistically probably won't start, but could take it over in the second half of the year. And so I like that, but for me, it's Mike Davis without a doubt here. There's no other running back in this mix that is the #1 running back on their team, and Mike Davis has no one competing for his role there in Atlanta. So he's going to get the ball a lot. He's going to get a lot of receptions, and that just makes him an incredible pick as my 3rd running back in the 7th round. So I think without a doubt, Mike Davis is the pick there over, like I said, Javonte Williams. Players like Chase Edmonds is someone you're also thinking about, but also has to worry about getting some of his carries taken away there in Arizona by James Conner, but James Conner's never healthy, so I don't know if that's really worrisome. Justin Herbert, Ayuk, who I also love, Tyler Lockett, OBJ, who could be a steal depending on if he's healthy this year. I mean, that's just a question always, right? Is this player healthy? Yes, no, whatever. But this is, round 1 OBJ going into a pretty important year in his career. So we'll see how it works out, especially in the 7th round. I don't think you reaching for your 3rd receiver here is awful on OBJ. TJ Hawkinson, Devontae Smith, Prescott, and Rodgers. So a lot of quarterbacks being taken now. Like I said, Williams and Edmond on the turn pick. DJ Chark, Sutton, Higgins, Fournette, Melvin Gordon, Noah Fant, Mostert, and then Robbie Anderson to finish off the 8th round, in which we're on the turn pick once again. So as our roster goes, this is what we're looking at over here. Already have a QB and a tight end, 2 wide receivers, 2 running backs, and a 3rd running back. So you could see just what we have available. We already have Deontay Johnson. Otherwise, Chase Claypool here would be something I'd be eyeballing. He's just a fantastic player and is going to have a lot of deep threat volume. But speaking of which, deep threat volume is something I'm looking to target later in the draft with someone like Mike Williams. I think Mike Williams is insane as a later round pick in this draft with how good the Chargers offense could be. I think if Mike Williams doesn't, try and be Superman on every catch, that he'll be a fantastic player, especially fantastic steal later on in the rounds. So right here, we're probably looking at wide receiver or an extra running back if we really need, but running back pool, I'm not really too keen on anything there. I saw Damian Harris, but we can take him later. So for right now, it's between one of these 3 players here. And I think I'm going to go with Deebo Samuel. As of right now, I don't know how I feel about that pick 100%. We're still on the turn pick, though. But Deebo Samuel is probably the #1 receiver there in San Francisco. Of course, he's competing with Brandon Ayuk, who looked fantastic last year. But if Trey Lance starts, even if Jimmy G starts, Deebo Samuel could still have a great year. So I don't really see that being too bad of a pick there at the end of the 8th round. Now going into the 9th round, this is where I think we can actually wait on getting a running back, but there is only 5 before the 2 I'm realistically looking at right now, which could easily go in the next picks here. So this is something we have to look at. Meanwhile, there's a whole bunch of receivers that I still love going later on the draft. So I think this is where we target that extra running back. We already have 3 really good workhorse running backs, basically, counting, Mike Davis in there. We'll see if he decides to be one in the future. Trey Sermon is someone, if you want to take a late flyer on, he's in Kyle Shanahan's offense, run first. It's a fantastic team to run for. He will get work without a doubt. The only issue is they'll bring someone off the practice squad to score 12 touchdowns, and suddenly Trey Sermon is not even a viable option anymore, just because that's how San Francisco seems to work. So that's something you have to keep an eye out for. But I'm actually going to go Damian Harris here. He is without a doubt going to be that lead running back in New England. Obviously, having Cam Newton as your quarterback could take away some of those potential end zone or the rushing touchdowns away in the end zone, but Cam Newton just doesn't look the same as far as rushing anymore. So I don't think it's going to be as much of a worry as it was in previous seasons, and Damian Harris is pretty much uncontested as the lead back in New England. So I think it's still a nice pick to have later on. Claypool, Waddle, Trevor Lawrence, Goddard, Jerry Jeudy, Rojo, Gesicki, Bryce Herman goes, Brandon Cooks goes as well. So there's a huge running back runoff here. So it probably would have been around here that Damian Harris would have made it to. So it could have been taken right before us. So maybe a good thing that we took him early. But Michael Carter, Kenyon Drake, James Conner, Moss, Landry, Brady, Laviska Shenault, who I was really hoping got back to us in this round, I think would have been fantastic. David Johnson, then Gronk. We're on 3-piece here. We do need a kicker and defense. Those would be the last two picks, obviously. We don't really want to back up quarterbacks, so we're still going to take another running back or another wide receiver here. And to see our options so far, wide receiver, we have plenty, so I'm not really too worried there. This is where you can get, if you're worried about your main running back going down, if you're one of these later picks, especially the Tony Pollard for Zeke, there's just a lot of important picks here, like A.J. Dillon for Aaron Jones as well. Could still get a lot of work there in Green Bay. Baltimore, sticky situation as well. J.K. Dobbins, but Gus Edwards still decent enough to get here in the later rounds. It's just none of these names are like screaming out to me just yet. I think Tyler Boyd is insane that he's dropped this much. I think just the talent pool of Cincinnati's wide receivers is just pushing him more and more down. If we wanted to go with the triple stack in Baltimore, we could take Hollywood Brown, but this is where I'm looking at Antonio Brown or Mike Williams. Like I said, I'm actually going to take Antonio Brown here, especially in the 10th round. I mean, we can get him even later, but we're planning on taking a kicker and defense. So you have to fill out your roster in this zone. And so we're going to do just that. We got there. And this is a tough one because still Devin Singletary is probably going to be the lead back potentially, but they're going to have a timeshare. He's probably going to end up splitting more time to Zach Moss than expected. And so because we have, I'd say, 4 really good running backs that are all running back ones on their team, I'm going to take A.J. Dillon as the backup for Aaron Jones. In case Aaron Jones goes down in that offense, A.J. Dillon's going to become an absolute stallion. So I think that's a decent enough pick here. Joey B, Stafford, Tannehill, and Hurts, so 4 quarterbacks in a row. Will Fuller, Tyler Boyd, Logan Thomas is where you start to see more tight ends go later after that. Obviously, the huge drop. Once you see Kelsey, Waller, and Kittle go down, you have that kind of second drop in tight ends where it goes Mark Andrews and Kyle Pitts, maybe even TJ Hawkinson. And then it's just a huge drop from there in tight end. So you're kind of just shooting for the stars here at the end of the draft if you want a good tight end. And that is what these teams are doing just now. Will Fuller, Tyler Boyd, Logan Thomas, Davis, Ito Smith, Rashad Bateman, who's also another good flyer there in Baltimore, could end up being the wide receiver 1 if Hollywood Brown is just used as a deep threat option, which he's fantastic at. Deshaun Watson, I also will be eyeing in my future drafts. I mean, if he does play this season, especially where he's going now in the 12th round, it's just dumb because last season he would be in one of the probably top 10 quarterback spots in the draft. So to get him this late, I think it's a steal. Singletary, Higbee, Tonyan, Marquise Brown, Curtis Samuel, who's also another great player that went to Washington, could help them out a lot. Could score you a decent amount of touchdowns later in these picks. Michael Gallup there. If Cooper misses time, obviously still just a great backup pick. Michael Pittman's another player I was looking at going forward as well. We have one more pick, and then we have kicker defense. So this is where we can kind of just take a flyer in general. If there's anyone that if I wanted Chuba Hubbard, if Christian McCaffrey goes down, this would probably be where I take him, but I don't think I'm going to need that. I'm just going to go for the extra elitism there in Mike Williams. Like I said, I've been targeting Mike Williams because he's the wide receiver 2 on that team. He's fantastic. Justin Herbert looked amazing last year, and I'm sure is going to continue that. He just has to stay healthy, but for the price that you're paying for Mike Williams at the end of the 13th round, or the end of the 12th round going into the 13th round, you can realistically can't go wrong in that aspect. So this is where I'm just going to take a kicker. I am a huge fan of Younghoe Koo, but Justin Tucker's on the board still, so I'll take a kicker here and start off the end of this draft. Kickers and defenses to go through. None of these really matter too much. Realistically, if you want to really care about your defense, just play waivers and look every week to see who they're facing. I'm just going to go with the New England Patriots just to finish this off. Go ahead and take a look at how the team's developed. And I think we had a pretty good draft, if I would say so myself. Looking at our team, of course, let me know, looking at these teams here. I don't think I'm dropping or covering too many important picks on the right-hand side over here. So you can see the most of the teams for the most part. But let me know in the comments what team you thought had the best draft out of all these teams here. We're going to run through our team. So at quarterback, we have Lamar Jackson. Both our running backs, starting running backs, Christian McCaffrey and Najee Harris, absolute workhorses. So really happy with that. Calvin Ridley and Deontay Johnson as our 2 wide receivers to line up. And then in our flex spot, play someone like Mike Davis and potentially Deebo Samuel or Damian Harris. And the rest of these picks, like I said, Antonio Brown, AJ Dillon and Mike Williams are all flyers, but also could be insanely good if something were to happen on their team or if they were to stay healthy. That is the main issue, right? So that is the main thing about these 3 picks, but we have a decent enough flex spot. I think this Deebo Samuel pick could have been something better, in my opinion. I think that's where this really could have been that 3rd great wide receiver, but Deebo Samuel, like I said, is still the number 1 target potentially there in San Francisco besides George Kittle, and Brandon Ayuk is competing for targets, of course, but he's going to have a fair share of targets. And looking at how other teams panned out, some really interesting teams, a lot of wide receiver stacks, it looks like, in a couple of these teams going forward. But yeah, let me know how you guys feel about this draft. Of course, I don't usually go quarterback tight end early, so in the 4th, 5th turn, that's kind of something new for me. So let me know how you feel about that, and just let me know in the future how you want to see these videos, because like I said, I'd like to go through every single draft position, team 2, team 3, team 4, etc., throughout the next couple of weeks or so in mock drafts, and try and see how the team kind of lines up. So yes, thank you guys so much for watching. Make sure to like, comment, and subscribe down below. I will see you next time for another mock draft.